ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
G'day ABC News Daily listeners. I'm Matt Bevan and I've got a new series that I'm very excited about. In America's last election, I'm looking back at the denial of the 2020 election result and what it tells us about the plan this year.
We think Trump won. Absolutely. We think that the election was rigged.
Frankly, we did win this election.
So you're going to cause riots in the streets.
You can find it on ABC Listen. Just search for If You're Listening. There's a new episode every week.
America is ready. America is ready for a fresh start, ready for a new way forward, where we see our fellow American not as an enemy, but as a neighbor.
You have to stand up and tell Kamala that you've had enough. You're not going to take it anymore. You're the most incompetent vice president we've ever had. Kamala, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. You're fired.
We are fighting for a democracy right now.
Together we will fight, and win.
We like hard work. Hard work is joyful work. And make no mistake, we will win.
We stand on the verge of the 4 greatest years in American history. You watch. It's going to be so much fun. It'll be nasty a little bit at times, and maybe at the beginning in particular, but it's going to be something.
Remember, your vote is your voice, and your voice is your power. Are you ready to make your voices heard?
Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have made their final pitches to the American people, and voting is finally underway in the United States. So, when the polls close, how long will it take for the votes to be counted and a winner to be declared? Today, the ABC's US election analyst, Casey Briggs, explains how it could unfold and what to watch for. I'm Sam Hawley on Gadigal land in Sydney. This is ABC News Daily. Casey, voting has begun in the US, and I think it's safe to say the entire world is waiting with bated breath for the result. So, look, you've joined me to guide us through what we can expect and what we should be looking out for. We know that there are 7 battleground states, and really that's all we have to watch, right?
Yeah, presuming there are no shock surprises on election night, which, given the year that we've had in US politics, let's not rule out. But there are 7 key states that both campaigns have spent an inordinate amount of time and a lot of money in as well. And so we should probably just focus on those 7. So there are 3 in the north, the so-called Rust Belt states, if you want to call them that. They are Pennsylvania, Wisconsin and Michigan. Those are 3 states that have always voted the same way, going back, almost 2 decades or more at this point. Joe Biden won them in 2020, Donald Trump won them in 2016, Barack Obama won them in 2012 and 2008. So that is 4 successive elections where the person that won those 3 states has won the White House. So, swing states, bellwether states in the classic sense, at least in the last couple of decades. Then you've got some states in the South, the state of Georgia, which Joe Biden won by just 11,779 votes 4 years ago. Just north of that, the state of North Carolina. And then out west, states that will probably take quite a bit longer to count than some of those other states, Arizona and Nevada.
Opinion polling, of course, we've had heaps and heaps of it, and very soon it won't really matter because we'll have the actual result. But what it has shown us, it's so tight in all these swing states. But what I want to know is, does that necessarily mean that that will be reflected in the final result? Or could there still be a landslide one way or the other?
It is entirely possible. I think it's important as you're watching the results coming in today to have this mindset. If the polls are dead on, this will be a very long and slow and laborious count, and it could take some time to know the winner. But polls have margins of error. There have been polling misses before. There could easily be a polling miss by even just a few points in Donald Trump or Kamala Harris's favour that would turn this into a relatively comfortable win for either of them. So there are 3 possibilities really here, and I think all of them should be on the table as potential outcomes from today's election. Kamala Harris wins relatively comfortably, Donald Trump wins relatively comfortably, or it is a state-by-state battle that will take a very long time to resolve. It is only once we start to see some figures coming in from about mid-morning, maybe lunchtime, that we'll start to get a sense of which of those universes are we in, and we will narrow the possibilities down as the day goes on.
All right, well, there'll be a lot, of course, of Australians watching this. It is absolutely fascinating and we all want to know the result. So let's get down to business. Tell me first, what data will you be relying on when judging what's going on? I know there's going to be many graphs and maps and spreadsheets, so just explain that for me.
There are so many graphs and spreadsheets, it's not funny. The thing to understand about American elections is they're very, very decentralised. Elections are done at the county level. So we are a little bit spoiled here. We have an Australian Electoral Commission at the Australian national level that runs our elections on one set of national rules. In the US, you've got different rules in different states and you've got county governments. There are thousands of counties administering these elections. So we're relying to get all that data in one place on our friends and our colleagues at the Associated Press. They're a news agency in the United States, and they will have thousands of staff on the ground at polling places, at county election offices and at state election offices, collating, verifying, tabulating and producing figures that we will then be able to plug into here at the ABC. And AP are the experts at this, and they've been doing it for a very long time.
Yeah, long history in it. Okay, of course, just like in Australia as well, Casey, there are many different time zones in the United States. So polls will be closed in some places, of course, while voting continues in others. Which swing states do we need to look at first and at what time? When do we really need to glue ourselves to the TV? I think we want to know.
Well, if you're me, it's all day,
of course.
all day, and for the days to come. But let's step you through how this count will work. From 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time is when we start to see swing states closing. Georgia is the first one at 11 a.m. A very tight potential battle there, and a very contested election 4 years ago. So we'll be watching to see what happens in Georgia very closely, and the figures will start to come in. We'll also get some first figures out of Florida, and they should come very quickly. Now, that one's not being seen as a swing state in this election, but we might well get some clues about where things might be going if there are any kind of substantial changes, because we'll get a very, very fast early count in Florida. Half an hour later, 11:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time, that's when polls in North Carolina close. And then at midday Australian Eastern Daylight Time, two big prizes. A long list of states, but chief among them for our purposes, Pennsylvania and Michigan. Michigan will probably count, we think, relatively quickly, or at least faster than Pennsylvania. We think Pennsylvania might take quite some time. It certainly took quite a long time 4 years ago. So we might be waiting a little bit longer there. The count might be a bit slower there. But Michigan, the first of the sort of Rust Belt states that we'll get a more clear idea about.
And what about if Trump just say, wins Georgia? Does that then give us a sense that, oh, hang on a minute, he's got Georgia, so that might be a sign that he's going to get these other swing states, or you can't read that into it?
It will depend a little bit on if there is a polling miss in some of these states. Polling misses tend to be correlated. So if there's a polling miss in one state, there's a good chance we'll see a polling miss in another state. That's not a guarantee, but that might be a clue that things are trending in Donald Trump's favour if he happens to win it, or in Kamala Harris's if it's clear that she's going to win it. So those early states might give us some hints, but this is a country that can be very diverse with very local issues that can dominate election campaigns as well. So I would just put that caution. There could be an issue that is particularly important in one state that does not play at all in the state next door. So it is really a state-by-state battle.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pennsylvania, you mentioned, is really vital, right?
Yeah, well, it was the state that tipped Joe Biden over the 270 Electoral College mark 4 years ago. It could well be the one again this time. The winner in Pennsylvania is highly likely to be the winner across the entire country. Now, that isn't guaranteed again. There's a lot of permutations here, but it's mainly because it's a big state and there are a lot of Electoral College votes on the line, and it is a close state. It's sort of sitting in the middle on those list of swing states.
Yeah. So you mentioned the Electoral College and the 270 votes that are needed. So just a bit of a quick reminder on that. It gets a bit complicated, but basically the person who wins the presidency doesn't necessarily have to win the most votes, the popular vote.
No, it's decided by this thing called the Electoral College, which is a real thing. It's not a building anywhere in Washington or anything like that. But the Electoral College is 538 people that are elected on election day. When people go in to vote in a state, yes, it's Kamala Harris and Donald Trump's name on the ballot, but who they're actually voting for is a slate of electors to represent them in the Electoral College. Bigger states get more electors, smaller states get fewer electors. That's basically the way to think about it. And in most states, the person who gets the most votes in that state wins that state's Electoral College votes. So if, as you would expect, Kamala Harris wins California today, that would mean that Kamala Harris will win 54 Electoral College votes, all of the votes from California, which is a pretty big chunk of votes. And then basically, as those states are called, we will add those Electoral College votes to the tally for the candidate that wins. And the first person that gets a majority of the Electoral College votes, that is 270, the first person that gets there is the next president.
And I think everyone kind of remembers back in 2016 when Hillary Clinton received 3 million more votes than Donald Trump, but alas, did not become the president. That really sticks in people's minds. Anyway, all right, Casey, just to put this out there, we may not have, of course, an official result on election night itself, but the media might call it.
Yes, I mean, this is just like it works in Australia. The actual official declaration and full count of votes will take quite a bit longer than election night. That's always been the case. So that will proceed as it does in Australia. We don't get official declarations of votes in Australia for days or even weeks. But just like we do here, the ABC makes projections about the winner of an election once that is clear beyond reasonable doubt. One party has clearly won. Just like that, in the United States, media networks have their decision desks. So all of the television networks in the US will have decision desks analysing the figures that come in, modelling the votes that are yet to come in. And when they've determined, yes, this result is clear, we know that the person behind cannot catch up and overtake the person that is leading in each state, that is when they will call that race.
So do we have a sense at all of what time, Australian time, we might get that?
No, depends how close it is.
Okay.
That is the unsatisfying answer.
All right.
If it's looking like we might actually have a relatively comfortable win with one of the candidates, we might get some indications of that in, say, the mid-afternoon. North Carolina might be a canary in the coal mine, just telling us, this one might be swinging more or less or in a direction that will point us toward a clear victory on the day. In previous elections prior to 2020, we had a winner in the sort of late afternoon, early evening sort of period. So if it's a safe, clear result, that might be what we see again today. A relatively clear result, relatively, say by dinner time.
Yeah, all right.
If it's close, though, expect it to take longer.
Okay, expect to stay up during the night if you are very keen to watch the coverage overnight. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people that do that, in fact, including yourself. So, Casey, it's really hard to tell how quickly we will have a result. The thing is, though, this is the concerning thing, the longer it takes to have an answer, the more the credibility of the voting system can be brought into question. And we already know that Trump has said during this campaign that he will challenge the result. There's a sense that he will deny the election result again, isn't there?
Well, just remember in 2020, 4 years ago, he got up on election night and essentially claimed victory well before it was clear that he would win. And in fact, we know he didn't win.
We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
And so there is every chance he might decide to do the same. But we do know both campaigns here have amassed armies of lawyers in preparation for what's expected to be, or at least anticipated to be, quite a long, drawn-out battle in the courts and, in the court of public opinion, frankly, because a lot of those efforts 4 years ago were also about convincing the public that there were some irregularities, that this election was stolen, which we know that it wasn't.
Yeah, we know that was false, and they do sound better prepared, I guess, to take this on this time. Well, Casey, at some point in the hours and maybe days, let's not hope weeks ahead, you'll be able to tell us who has won and explain their path to that victory to us. There is so much at stake here, right? We really cannot underestimate the impact that this election will not only have on the United States, but the entire world.
Absolutely. I mean, look at the state of global affairs at the moment. There are wars in the Middle East and in Europe, in Ukraine. There are signals from the Republican camp that they would maybe take a different tack on some of those global issues. There are domestic economic policies that the Trump campaign and Donald Trump has that would have global implications. There is a lot at stake for the world. That is why Australians are really interested in what's going on. The voters are making their decisions, and I guess we are now in their hands and about waiting to find out what they've decided.
Absolutely. Well, good luck with the graphs, the maps, the spreadsheets. We'll be watching.
Thank you.
Casey Briggs is the ABC's US election analyst. And watch your feed tonight. We'll have an extra episode updating you on the vote count and when we expect to get the result. This episode was produced by Sydney Peed and Anna John. Audio production by Sam Dunn. Our supervising producer is David Cody. I'm Sam Hawley. Thanks for listening.